Hello, everybody. Hi, and once again, thanks for joining us. Welcome to another Google News Initiative training workshop brought to you by the Walkley Foundation for Journalism. I'm John. I'm the Google News Initiative Training Network Project Manager. And once again, we're joined by Miguel, the Google News Lab Teaching Fellow for Australia and New Zealand. Now, before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we're all gathered today remotely, because I'm sure we're all tuning in from various different locations. Now, for me, in Australia, that's the Gadigal and Wangal people of the Eora Nation, and I pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. We're coming to you live from Sydney once again, and today we're putting together a special webinar for New Zealand journalists and editors. This is actually the second installment of our New Zealand focused training sessions. If you're yet to watch the first, do hop online and search for the Walkley Foundation on YouTube, or keep your eyes peeled on Twitter, and we'll post the link via our respective accounts. Now, even if you're already familiar with a few verification disciplines and techniques, I do encourage you to watch and share today's workshop, because representative democracy is based on free and transparent elections. And it's not an exaggeration at all to say that there is no representative democracy without well-informed citizens. Media organizations and journalists play an essential role in the electoral process by assuring the dissemination of news and diverse opinions. And the media makes possible these deeper understandings and knowledge of candidates, parties, and their programs. And journalists contribute to the effective participation of citizens in democratic debate, especially by ensuring that issues of public interest remain at the center of election campaigns. But we're all well aware that misleading, low quality, and downright false information can be used to influence voters. So today, Miguel will share some resources to help you report and to debunk and to verify information online with a firm eye on Saturday, the 19th of September. As always, if you have a question about anything covered in this workshop, just type it into the chat box and we'll always try our best to provide an answer. Please don't be shy. We're here to help in any way we can. You can also contact us via email. The address is newslabsupport@google.com, and you can access step-by-step tutorials at any time and at no cost just by going to g.co/news training. As in our last session, before I go, some quick honorable mentions before I pass you over to Miguel. First Draft News, not to sound like a broken record, but it is a fantastic resource. They have spent years upon years empowering people around the world with knowledge and tools to build resilience against the kind of stuff we're going to tackle in today's webinar: harmful, false, and misleading information. You can access their training tools at www.firstdraftnews.org, and you might want to reach out to Anne Kruger. Just search for her on Twitter. I also encourage you to check out g.co Protect Your Election, where you can find information from Google and Jigsaw, a technology incubator created by Google, on how to best safeguard what you publish when it matters most. That's it for me for now. I hope you enjoy what we have in store, and I'll hand you over to Miguel.
John. Thank you very much, John, and welcome to today's Google News training, everybody. As John said, today we're going to take a little bit of a focus on the New Zealand election and have a look at some introductory tools to verifying and checking material that you're seeing online. Before I begin, I'd like to also start today by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the lands on which we meet and recognize their continuing connection to land, waters, and community. I pay my respects to them and their cultures, and to elders past, present, and emerging. Now, a little bit about me. I'm a journalist and a teacher trainer. I've worked on the internet putting out news since the mid-90s for companies like AAP, news.com.au, 7 News, and SBS. You can find me on either of those things anytime, and do drop me a line. I'm more than happy to chat. Thank you very much for joining us today. I feel free, please, to ask questions during the broadcast, and one of us will try and get back to you with an answer. So what we're looking at today is verification. We're going to look very much in an introductory way at the verification, at a few tools that'll help you verify people, images, and perhaps even videos online. By the end of today's session, you'll know how to get started with reverse search to verify pictures and video. And I'll also show you a few little tools, including Google's Fact Check Explorer and things like the RevEye reverse image extension, and even a few tools to monitor content on Twitter. So let's get started. First up, misinformation is being spread online all the time. Google's Fact Check Explorer allows you to really easily browse and search for fact checks. Let me just flash up their address on screen for you. It's worthwhile having a look, and if you, as you can see in these examples, we have fact checks, that is Google, I'm sorry, have fact checks produced by reputable news agencies and outlets around the world, including AFP, who have a team right here in the region covering New Zealand social media, politicians and public statements, and AAP, who also now have a reporter who's based in New Zealand already checking the statements of New Zealand politicians. So do check their work out. It's quite a good first stop. We're going to get started today, though, at looking at images. And sometimes image files themselves can actually contain data that can help you locate, date, or identify the person that took the image. Now, for instance, what do you do if someone sends you an image? That you can try and check out the exif data. exif stands for Exchangeable Image File Format, or officially exif, which is a standard that specifies the formats for images, sound, and other tags used by digital cameras, including smartphones, scanners, and other systems. And this then records as data, metadata on the file of the image, which you can, in some cases, extract using a tool a bit like this one. I'll put the URL on the screen and I'll show you how it works. This is a screen grab of a thing called Jeffrey's Image Metadata Viewer. It's quite a simple to use little tool, and it involves essentially grabbing an image. Now, importantly, and you'll see why in a second, this has to be an image that's come from a phone or perhaps a digital camera, or maybe even from a scanner. But unfortunately, it can't come from something, it doesn't have any ability to check images from social media. So if you're in the position where you can ask somebody that's shot a photo to actually send you a copy or share a copy with you, that at least will give you an opportunity to identify and verify some of the information on it. Now, if you have a look at your screen, you can see that the exif viewer will pull up all sorts of data, including the sort of device that it was taken off. In this case, which lens on that device it was taken from, what sort of exposure setting it was at, whether the flash was used or not, when, right down to the hour that photograph was taken, as well as that a pretty interesting and accurate approximation of the latitude and longitude of that photo. It can be extremely useful, particularly, again, if you have what you are presented with as documentary evidence from a camera or a telephone, for instance. However, it does have one important drawback, and that is that an exif scrubbing tool like this one can completely fool a tool like it, purely because it can scrub all of the metadata, revise the file, blur faces, and completely change the photo. The other thing about it is that, as I said to you earlier, all images that are uploaded to social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and so on, actually scrub the metadata as part of the compression process in putting that image on the service. That's kind of a drawback for you. But you've got other tools which you can use to get around that. I think it's important at this early stage to point out, and this is something you should really get used to, is that for every strategy that you might have, there's usually a counter strategy to undermine it, which is why when it comes to verification, I encourage you to get into the mindset of thinking that, let me just fix myself. I seem to have created a bit of a muddle here. Just to get into the mindset of verification. Now, if you give me 1 minute, I'm just going to reset myself here. Let's see, I seem to have lost some of myself. There we go. Yeah, we're almost back, folks. Sorry about that little break. We're back. Sorry about that. Now, as I was explaining, a metadata scrubber is very effective at completely erasing all of the data, as is social media on an image. So what do you do? Well, I'm going to tell you a little bit about image search, because image reverse search then becomes your most useful strategy. Now, what you're looking at over here is a screen grab of Google's image search, which is very good at capturing the metadata around an image, which can mean that it sometimes returns something that looks like a guess at what the image is, along with visually similar objects. So it is useful, and as you can see over here, it certainly does bring back results that at least give you an indication of what something is. In fact, let me just flash up Google's image search URL there for you. Now, next up is Bing. Now, Bing maps your image search query, then looks for that against images mapped in the same semantic space. It's a slightly different approach to Google, which is why we sort of use all of these. But Bing's approach is sort of like the uses an association, which is sort of like the association we make between chickens and kookaburras, in that we understand them both to be birds. Now, crucially, this means that Bing can sometimes return accurate results that Google doesn't. Also, and this is really handy, Bing has a nifty little crop tool, which allows you to resample the search just for that image. You might want to think of that, for instance, in terms of, it might be a useful way sometimes to actually identify a stray image that you can't necessarily quite identify in a view. But as you can see, when used in conjunction with the resampling, Bing's search narrows for an object that's in the picture. It doesn't necessarily get it all the time, but it may well actually help you add to your investigation. Now, Yandex is used by around half of Russia's internet users. It actually predates Google, believe it or not. And the other thing is that unlike Bing and Google, Yandex doesn't necessarily use databasing as its primary means of understanding images. Yandex is a machine learning company, and it's actually applied algorithms to learn the content of pictures. So it's a very different and efficient image search tool. I'm going to stress to you a bit later on with another example just how useful it is and how handy it can be at making matches on social media, etc. Now, let me just make sure you can see that URL. There's the Yandex image URL. Look, if you are, like me, you're interested in reading about these things, I will just throw up some detail about how their technology works, because it is kind of fascinating. As I say, Yandex is a machine learning company, so its tool is incredibly good at understanding people's faces because it's been trained on a lot of social media images. Well worth reading there, by the way, if you're interested. Now, TinEye has yet another approach to the whole area of image search. And let me just make sure that you're seeing the TinEye URL. Now, TinEye looks for exact matches for images and also has its own match engine technology to do this. TinEye's approach involves creating a unique fingerprint for images uploaded to it, which it then matches with its own database of fingerprinted images. And as a result, it'll find exact matches and sometimes, just sometimes, altered versions of the original. It's also got a special tool called Match Engine. Upload 2 images and it will highlight the contrast between them. It's actually very quite effective at it too. I'll just put that up on screen as well, the URL for the Match Engine. So, which one do you use? Well, the answer is actually all of them. Plus, with the addition of the Baidu image search extension. You do use them all using a thing called the RevEye image Chrome desktop extension. I'm just going to pop that into your screen as a search. Now, sometimes I'm going to pop up a search suggestion for you because it's probably a lot easier than me putting up the original URL. I'll also give you some time now to search for it, find it, and install it. You just simply use the Add to Chrome button when you want to install RevEye. Now, and this is an example of, by the way, just the TinEye match engine at work. Now, so let's talk about RevEye. Hopefully you've had a chance to install that Chrome extension. What will happen is once you've got it installed, you'll see a little eyeball icon appear up near your address bar in your Chrome browser. To make it work, all you do is right-click over any image online. It looks like this when it's working. As you can see there, a dialog box opens up and you've got your choice of using one or all of the search engines. One little disclaimer about Baidu, unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be working at the moment. Hopefully it comes back soon. Hopefully by now you've had a chance to install it. Let's see how it works. So let's just say this image. This composite image appeared the other day on Twitter, getting a small number of retweets and likes. Google found tweets containing the image and filtering these for date, published the for the date published, identifies the tweet to which first published the image. So again, by right-clicking over the image, we were able to retrieve tweets, which we then filtered using the tools filter on Google's reverse image search to identify that the tweet on top was the first one that had shared that image. Bing, in turn, was able to return a result where it allowed us to actually search for that text, which in turn could then be verified. And it all checked out. Now, we're going to have a look at different locations because one strategy for looking for images is actually being able to identify the content of the image in the picture. So when you're looking at an image, start to train your eye on details that you're seeing. You know, for instance, in this image, you can see shop signs, business signs. Now, these can often be searched for against location. Over here, you can see unique street furniture, a bike path, street signs. These are all things that can be brought up on Street View or Google Maps. Sometimes, if you're really good, you can zoom right into an image. Oops. Don't forget to use your zoom tool and you can probably work out which council this sign is. And again, the other thing is you may even be familiar with touring bands and things like that, or shows that are on in particular towns. Oops. This one's slightly harder, I suppose, than the other one, but again, we've got an opportunity of looking at things like vegetation. These structures, like tanks in the middle of a field, can sometimes help you locate it. The location of traffic lights and things like that. And again, a super zoom into this photo may well reveal insignia on somebody's uniforms. One other thing is that sometimes people have different specialities. If you know somebody that is particularly into botany, they can be very handy with a reverse image search. So this is more looking at being able to match a location to the content of the image. Now here's another one. I mean, this one is absolutely full of things that you could search. Business names, it's obviously some kind of pedestrian mall. You can see tables outside, a cute little van actually with a coffee business's name on it. Again, the whole idea is that you've got this whole array of things in an image. Start to really look deep into images. And hoardings can also be really useful. Sure, they're reasonably temporary, but this one will probably give you a clue as to which city in New Zealand this actually is. Now, this is a special mention. If you have an Android phone, or if you have the Google app on your phone, I can thoroughly recommend using Google Lens. It sometimes can be difficult to find, and unfortunately, there is no iOS app. But you can actually activate it if you just get the Google app on your iPhone. And then using any search, like you can see on the screen grab here, you can point it at a building. In this case, by the way, I'm actually using it. The screen grab you're looking at is me actually pointing it at an image that's on a computer screen. But again, Lens can be a really, really handy tool because essentially what it is using that image to then search for related places, things, objects, locations, etc., sometimes businesses. Well worth a try. Give it a go. We're going to have a look at a different way of analyzing images. I'm not sure if you saw this the other day. Sadly, well, sadly for us, and anyway, this post has actually been removed. But this is a little bit of a picture fail that made the headlines the other day from Rudy Deploy. And as you can already see on the comments down there in the bottom, this new Conservative candidate's absolutely shoddy attempt at doing a Photoshop job on one of his own campaign signs to make it look like it had been the victim of a graffiti vandal attack. It was debunked immediately by everybody on his page, which was kind of hilarious. But he left it up for a few days and then later on tried to claim that somebody else had sent him a fake image, which, of course, only further got himself into trouble. Look, there's a couple of dead set clues already on this one, obviously, because somebody here has pointed it out for you. He's left his cursor on screen, and it does really, really look like a very bad attempt in MS Paint. Now, what are you looking at over here? This is actually a screen grab of an error level analysis of the same image. Now, do you see how the text that's in black looks like it is very much standing out or superimposed over the rest? That's an indicator of alteration. I'm going to show you how that works next. What you're looking at here is a tool called Forensically. It has a whole bunch of nifty little things that it can do, and I'm just going to, just as I did before, send you a link and send you a suggestion to search for it, because it does have a pretty strange looking URL, which unfortunately is not very friendly for semantic search. So just pop that on screen for you. So that's how you'll find Forensically, but I'm going to talk you through how it works. Now, Forensically has a few little features to it. It's a magnification tool which lets you zoom in on images to look for smoothened pixels. What you're also looking is for a thing called a compression artifact. This is a noticeable distortion of media, including, which can actually also happen in audio and video, but specifically here we're looking at images, caused by the application of what's known as lossy compression. Now, lossy compression is probably the most commonly used format the most commonly used compression method when it comes to images you're seeing online. Now, on the one hand, it makes the image easier to load online simply by removing file information from it. And this, in a sense, can, when it happens across multiple saves of a picture file, which is often what happens when pictures are being altered, these elements then show up as a contrast to the rest of the image. So, if you are interested, by the way, using our old friend, the define search operator, you can chase that up, and that'll tell you a little bit more about error level analysis. So, if we click on the error level analysis button, say on the right, if we're of this, we can actually see what sort of work has happened. So anyway, let me just see if I can dig up an example for you. So here's an image that was recently shared on Reddit's New Zealand subreddit. It's trying to mimic one of those news alerts on your phone, and I'll share a link with you to the original post. Now, as you can see over there, it is trying to mimic one of those news alerts, and in particular a Google News alert, which I can't imagine Google were terribly happy with, on your phone. Now, I've sent you a link to the original, and I'm going to show you how error level analysis, can be used to debunk this. So, and also a bit of reverse image search too. So in the first instance, what does the reverse image search show us? So you can see here again, I'm using that screen grab. And my screen grab shows you that I'm about to launch RevEye for a reverse image search. It brought up an article on NewsHub, which shows that the image essentially was sourced from a composite image, which is used by NewsHub's The AM Show. Google found us both of the images separately that we used in the composite, both of which were stills generated out of the AM Show's videos of interviews with the leaders. The handy thing there is obviously because the AM Show is publishing screen grabs of its own interviews, the images are relatively unique. Here's one of the opposition leader. And the photo of the opposition leader is from a story dated July 22nd, while the photo of the PM is from back on 15th of June. And that's also a screen grab from a NewsHub video. So let's look at the text. Well, the text in the Reddit image was worth searching, and indeed it turns up as a headline on a Radio New Zealand story. So where to now? Can we determine anything from this image itself? All of our reverse image searches have turned up legitimate images and a composite that was exactly the same, and also a link to the original post. You could, of course, search for the user, but let's go back to the image. And if we ran it through the error level analysis tool forensically, you can see here what stands out is the text that's been superimposed over it. In addition, the text below indicates obviously some later saves and suggests that this image has been heavily altered, and as we've seen with all of our different bits and pieces of information, is in fact a sort of composite that was created. So let's move on. A special mention must go to Amnesty International's Citizen Evidence Bureau. It's a very handy tool because what it allows you to do, and let me just share this with you on screen, is break videos down to individual thumbnails, which you can search for as a reverse image search to try and match those images. In addition, and this one I'll give you as a search as well, if you're looking to break down videos into searchable thumbnails, do use the invid keyframes option. You just simply load a YouTube URL into that, and then that'll open up individual keyframes for you. Now, here's another little exercise which is going to show you, I guess, how useful Yandex is. I wanted to sort of stress how handy it is as a reverse image search tool, particularly when it comes to matching faces. Now, in this case, I found this tweet a week or so ago, which was kind of a wordplay on Chaz and the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. So I ran it through Google, which via the RevEye tool, and Google returns results, including sort of details about handwriting, all sorts of sort of strange stuff. But it does. A lot of them seem to be reposts of Tumblr images, and it's kind of it involved quite a degree more wading to actually find something to do with that original image. Bing also returned the image, but with results featuring a tweet and a Facebook post from Chaz Bono, and links back to the original, which was useful. And this is the Bing results. And as you can see here, Bing is relatively good at returning matches there. And that's actually the final image. But what I wanted to show you was the Yandex results. And the interesting thing here is just the huge array of exact matches for Chaz Bono that Yandex was able to sort of return. Quite incredible. And here's another example. And as you can see here, that was the original sign, which was just a promo for American Horror Show. Now, this is a really useful tool for essentially being able to determine time and day, perhaps, that an image was shot at. It's called SunCalc. I'll just pop that into your screen. And I thought I'd have a look at this. This was an image that was used to illustrate a story about a very nice new apartment building in Auckland. And as you can see, there's a bit of shadow starting to creep across the right side of the building. Now, an image search, a reverse image search, reveals a few real estate ads for the property, which is at 85 New North Road in Auckland. And I managed to find another real estate agent shot. And as you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, I've circled a taco business that has a pretty prominent sign, which I then was able to bring up on Street View. Just over here, you can see it in the corner of that image. And here's the building here on our left being put up. It's along Asquith Avenue, and this is New North Road going up the hill there. Now, what I did was put the address into SunCalc. And what I was able to do was view SunCalc to see if I could determine even a rough time of day when that was shot. And let me just pull that up. Okay, so now, as you can see on my screen now, you're looking at a screenshot of, oh, not a screenshot, I'm sorry, you're actually looking at the page which has loaded the map for that location. Obviously, that map is a little bit out of date. The building isn't necessarily there. But what SunCalc allows you to do is to move this slider and get an idea of where shadows are being thrown at a different time of day. You have a look down here at this black bar, and as you can see, the shadow that's being thrown across at this time of day, roughly about 4 o'clock, suggests to me that that's probably the time of day, thereabouts, that that photo was taken. Give it a try yourself. It's always worth playing with. Excuse me. So we're going to move on a little bit. Let's just now turn our attention to a few tools to get you started on verifying accounts in social media. Now, today we are going to look at Twitter and Hoax accounts and just touch on a couple of tools to get you started. First, the botometer. That's how I'm going to say it anyway. It all depends on which emphasis you put on what syllable. I'll throw that in as a search for you. You'll be able to pick that one up very easily with that. Now, when you're looking at a tweet, in this case, the botometer will actually just display just like that. Whoops, let me just put that back up on screen as a bit of a ticker or an indicator. One thing I will say to you, though, is that from time to time, even the botometer can get tricked. And I think changes in perhaps Twitter's algorithms are starting to leave it a little behind. Now, when that happens, what you need to be able to do is understand what you're looking at on a person's Twitter account. I'm going to throw a tool into onto screen just to show you something which will, help you look at a few things like this. This is called the account analysis tool. Look, what it does is, and this is how it displays, okay? It allows you to view language in because it will then display all tweets in a list, so you can have a really close look at the tweet semantics, because one thing to remember with bots is that they're often created with a particular end in mind, so they may be overly obsessed with a particular topic. They might even repost the same content again and again and again and pretty much tweet about nothing else. So that's something you can look at with account analysis, but you can also look at things like, I suppose, so-called temporal behavior. Now, looking at tweets over time can also be revealing. And if an account tweets at an impossible rate or at a really odd time, or even too regularly, that can be a good sign it's fake. Now, in the case of what you've got on screen here, you can see this account seems to tweet a lot between about 1 and 3 a.m., which suggests that maybe they're not in my time zone. Now, a good tool to help you do that is a tool called Twillets. I'll just make sure I've shared this on screen with you. What it allows you to do, even in its free form, is actually download the entire content of somebody's Twitter account. Something that enables you to basically look at all sorts of things, including tweets over time. Also it'll enable you to look at things like, network features, which, a bot may only follow a certain number of accounts, or indeed it may follow a bunch of bots as well. It also helps you sort of map out a kind of network of association between Twitter accounts. Oh, one other thing, which is very handy when it comes to verifying social media accounts, is our old friend reverse image search. Really handy way of getting started on understanding whether an account might be fake or not. Give it a try. Another little tool is to sometimes it can help you at least identify perhaps or confirm maybe that an account might have an email address that is familiar to you. Now, this one comes with a qualification. Don't try and reset another user's Twitter password. It's probably a good indication to the paranoid that somebody might be onto them. What you do, though, is go to the Twitter password reset area and enter their details. And what you'll be presented with is a screen that often looks like this. Now, I will tell you, and this is a QAnon account that's active in New Zealand and Australia. If you have a look at this, you can see, and if you're familiar with email suffixes, this is very likely a Proton mail handle. That's very common and very popular amongst paranoid QAnon types, and lots of other people, actually. So let's move on. And again, here's the sort of data that you can start to get. Now, interestingly enough here, this is a good example. It will actually point to URLs that somebody is likely to be posting or tweeting. Another really useful way of let's just use. Okay, and look, here is a little checklist I think we should all have a look at. Basically, this is was recently produced by the US Department of Homeland Security, and it is a very, very handy little checklist, which I think is worthwhile sort of going through right now. When you are looking for fakes on Twitter, do look for things like misspellings, recently created accounts, unusual usernames or handles, incorrect logos, flags, or phrases. And here are some examples here. These are, interestingly, all from fake Antifa accounts. Recently joined, you can see over here, some misspellings in the hashtags of all things, which is really weird. Very few followers, clearly, obviously, recently registered. Here's another example. You know, again, look at, you know, in this case, the location that something's tweeting from, which is Vladivostok in Russia, big clue. And again, misused flags, misspellings, all sorts of stuff like that, which really clearly points to a fake account. Now, Facebook is kind of a difficult tool to work through when it comes to identifying and verifying people online. However, this is quite a useful tool. Now, what it does is simply just, it just basically makes the whole exercise of searching for people on Facebook slightly, and I mean slightly simpler, because it allows you to bypass a lot of the category stuff that will come up and simply just go straight to Facebook's people search. It can be used to search for individual names or entities, but its value is, like a lot of Facebook tools, kind of limited because it is, you know, relatively difficult to find people on it. This, however, I think should be your new best friend for covering the New Zealand election, because I might even load this one up for you. What you're looking at here is Facebook's ad library. So let's just say I can search for advertisers based on their name. So let's look for National Party in New Zealand. And this will then bring up a filter, which is actually very, very handy. In fact, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to search for, apologies, an issue, which is New Zealand, then go to advertiser. And when you go into advertiser, you're able to then filter for matches. Reset that. Get this straight out of the way. Again, like many Facebook tools, it can be rather clunky. I'm just going to set to all so that it's universal. Now I should be able to pull up New Zealand National Party. Once it sort of gets going, then I should be able to pull up here. No, it's not working. Doesn't matter, because initially what this helps me do is identify by platform, and you can actually see here that the National Party has been on a bit of a blitz since, obviously, Judith Collins took over the leadership, which is quite understandable. But their approach differs by platform. So, for instance, their approach to Facebook is a much more broad approach, looking to target voters on the new leadership team. However, when you filter for Instagram instead, you can see here a much more targeted approach, looking at certain areas, traffic, infrastructure, these sorts of things. Well worth looking at. Could certainly be a story or two in that, I would suggest. Okay, so let me just quickly move on now. I'm going to leave you with one last set of tools. This is the value of domain searching. So I'm just going to throw this URL into your screen. This tool allows me to basically do some research on domain searching. Now, the New Zealand Public Party URL was one of the URLs which I picked up on a bot-like Twitter account, which seemed to be sort of sending a lot of people to this. So I thought I'd see who was involved. And as you can see, this is a screen grab of what that central ops site will pull up for you when you put the URL into it. And it brings up here an email address for info@michaelstace.com, which at least gives me a thread to then search, obviously, for Michael Stace, which is, who is appears to be a private investigating business in Wellington. And finally, looking on that website, I was able to find company details and so on to be able to chase up more details about him. Look, we've come to the end of things for today. I will actually share our g.co news training URL with you up on screen, because we do have lots more courses that you can do. Do stay tuned also, though, to the Walkleys and G&I, because we will actually tell you about upcoming trainings that are coming up. And also, if you are a news organization, do get in touch, because we are actually offering one-on-one training with you and your news teams at the moment during the election. But for now, thank you so much for joining me. I really hope this has been useful. Do get in touch if there is anything that you've missed or you'd like to catch up on. My details will be up on screen in a second. There they are. Yeah, I hope this has been useful. So for now, I might hand you back to John Bergen from the Walkleys. But thanks a lot for your time.
Thanks for that, Miguel. Really appreciate it. I hope you found today's webinar useful, everyone. Remember, if you have any questions about Google products and services, or how the Google News Initiative is working with newsrooms and publishers, you can email newslabsupport@google.com. You'll notice the email address is scrolling along the bottom of your screen. I also encourage you to check out First Draft News. I might just pop their URL up on the screen for you to have a quick gander at. Please feel free to write that down or punch it into your browser right now. And I also encourage you to check out that great resource about digital protection, both for publishers, for journalists, and actually for political candidates as well. Now that I put my mind to it, the URL is g.co/protect-your-election. If you've got any questions for me, you are more than welcome to reach out. My email address is john.bergen@walkleys.com. But aside from that, thank you so much, Miguel, and thank you everybody for your attention today. I hope you found it useful. I actually have got a survey that I would encourage you to quickly write down that URL or take a screen grab of. The only way we'll learn is if people give us feedback. We feel we've got some really important information to share, but that doesn't mean that we're not open to listening and improving as well. So please, 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 if you have the time, write down that short bit.ly code there, pop it into your browser, fill out the feedback form. It's completely anonymous and confidential, and that'll help make us able to attend to your needs with more precision. Aside from that, thank you all once again. We'll be back with another workshop very shortly, but it's bye for now.